notions of misconception about what it is to worship the Lord. That's what church is. Church is what we do to worship the Lord. How many like Tennessee Titans? You know, they just had a draft. They just had a draft because there's a lot of stuff in the media about who they drafted and who they should have drafted and what they should have drafted and who should be drafted and who should be traded and who should be picked. How many of you really like Tennessee? Wait, don't be ashamed. Raise your hand if Tennessee is. I like the Dallas Cowboys. That is my team, America's team. All of you need to follow the Dallas Cowboys. They are a great team. Yes. But part of understanding what worship is and what being a fan is important. And that's really what we are going to look at. How many of you are a fan of 18? I was hoping Jerez was going to be here. Jaquez was going to be here today, but he's not here. Jaquez likes the Chicago Bulls for some strange reason. And I was going to buy him a Miami Heat shirt, and he adamantly denied me and refused my request. He has a little Bulls hat and a jacket. He probably got some clothes at home too. Bulls. A fan is someone who really likes a team, likes a person. Beyonce fans, you got Elvis Presley fans. A worshiper is the next step higher.
All right. Come on, Pastor.
It's all right to be a fan of a team, but you can't worship that team. That's really the difference. And I discovered church won't mean nothing to you if you don't love God. If you're not a fan of God, coming here is a waste of your time. You cannot worship in spirit and in truth if you don't love the Lord with all your heart, your soul, and your mind. That's why you don't like church, because you don't know the Lord in your heart, your soul, and your mind. And until you can accept God as God of your life, you will never love church. And you will never get nothing out of it. That's why God says, praise me with everything you have. That's why Jesus was so important, because folk loved him. That's the essence of why we come here week in and week out. And we're going to take an informational and inspirational journey into the understanding of what it means to worship, to praise, and to know God more, and to worship with others, and to listen to God's voice, and to understand what the church is all about. Worship is an act of religious devotion, usually directed toward a deity. The words described from the Old English version meaning worship, meaning worthiness, worship, to declare God's worth. God is the only means through which we can receive salvation. Now, a fan, however, is somebody we call a supporter. It's a person who enthusiastically devotes to something, who is enthusiastically devoted to something, someone, some object, a band, a sports team, an entertainer. The text tells us today on the first day of the week, the first Sunday, they came together and they broke bread, which is what we're going to do today. We're going to break some bread. Paul spoke to the people because he had intended to leave the next day. He wanted to make sure they understood the salvation of God. They were in a big building, kind of like this, a little bit taller. It was 3 or 4 stories the day he fell asleep. Some of us can relate to that. And he fell to his death because he was sitting in the window seat. He wasn't sitting on the pew. See, if you fall asleep, you probably gonna pop your head on the side of the pew thing and forward. You're not gonna fall from a long distance and die like this man did. The early Christians, they met on the first day of the week to remember and honor Christ in the breaking of bread. And of course, in the case of Paul, today our breaking of the bread is in the form of the Lord's Supper, which is going to be accompanied with a little bit of preaching, and every now and then I'm going to take a break to catch my breath and let the choir sing. Fortunately, you have it. It's not going to be all night, so we won't be here till midnight. Now, church is where we give reverence. Church is where we give reverence to the object of our worship, and the object ought to be God. God ought to be the object of the person that we worship and give respect to and honor on this day. 1 John 2:15 says, do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For everything in the world, the cravings of sinful man, the lust of the eye, the boasting of what he has, the boasting of what he does, comes not from the Father, but from the world. The world and its desires are going to pass away. The man who does the will of God will live forever. You got to be careful not to let the world become more important to you than your salvation and the God who woke you up this morning. And oftentimes, the stuff that we create, the things that we want to do in this world, take priority in everything we want to do. All that stuff comes to an end, but God is everlasting. Even though we are here to make a living in this world, we must realize that we must also make a life. And God has called us and predestined us, and we need to make that life as pleasing to God as we can. And a part of pleasing God is remembering and honoring him in every which way we can, every day, and not just on a particular day. CAB does not stand for Christmas, Mother's Day, and Easter. It stands for Christian, Methodist, Episcopal. We really need to get rid of the Methodist and Episcopal and just try and be Christian for a while. We're going to talk about three things today, and in order to understand what a fan is, you have to understand the importance of worshiping. I'm going to give you a reason why to be a fan of the church, because the church is about God. Not just any God, a super God. Every sports fan has a team that they think is or should be a super team. And what makes that fan a real fan is they feel within their heart, no matter how bad the team is, that team is cool. They think their team is the best, and they often come up with ways to prove their point, even if it don't make sense. But we have a greater fan. God, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Everything and everything you see and everything you are and everything you comes from the power of God. Have you ever sat up at night and looked up in the sky and tried to count the stars? Have you ever wondered why flowers bloom at the wrong time, or even when you think flowers understand. Only God can do things that you just can't conceive. If you ever wonder how you came into this life, nobody manufactured you. Nobody sewed your arm to your shoulders, your knees to your hips, your feet to your legs, put an instrument in the heart and made you breathe. Only God can blow breath into you and keep you alive and take you whenever He wants to take you back. Who would not want to honor a God who has the power to bring you into this world and to take you out of this world? A God who can protect you from hurt, harm, and shame. A God who loves you despite of yourself. When somebody hits you and steps on your foot, you get mad, you pout, you cry, you curse, you do everything in the world, you develop bad feelings, harsh feelings, and you want to know why they did this terrible thing to me. But despite of it all, when you reject God, when you talk about God, when you hate your fellow man, when you disrespect folk, when you do against His commandments, God yet says, I still love you. And not only do I love you, I'm going to sacrifice my only begotten Son that you might have life. How many of you can give your only Son so somebody else can be saved? I'm not quite sure there are very many people in here who can do that. But yet God does that. Notice the text. Paul preached into the night, and there was a man sitting in the upstairs window who fell asleep and fell to his death. Paul raced over to cover the man and restored the man to life. I thought only Jesus could raise folk from the dead. No, God raises whom He chooses. Because that's the power of God that can actually work in us. I would imagine if it was God's will, you could probably go to somebody's mortuary and say, Brother Mortician, do you have any dead bodies laying around? And I just imagine if it's God's will, you could just probably walk back to the casket and lay your hand on it. And it is God's will. I just imagine He'll just jump up out of that casket. I know some of y'all looking at me like I'm crazy. That's why we have a problem with this church thing. But I'm just dumb enough to think if Jesus can raise Lazarus from the dead, I'm just stupid enough to believe if Jesus can raise Jairus' daughter, who wasn't even a Jew, raised her from the dead. I'm just dumb enough to think if Paul can raise a man who falls from the foot back to life. I'm just stupid enough to believe that if Jesus Himself can die on the cross, be bled and shattered, beaten, and 3 days later get up as if nothing happened. I guess I'm just doing it. God can do anything God wants to do, and He don't need your permission. Because God is God. Paul raced over the man and restored the man to life. And the one thing we miss in worship is the true worship is designed to bring dead folk back to life. God will take your spiritually dead body and He'll breathe life into it. Ezekiel looked at a pile of bones. He said, ain't nothing I can do with these bones. These bones are dry, they are stale, they are broken, they are splintered, they are mutilated, they are old, they are in the field. God said, breathe on these bones. Prophesy See, if you want to be entertained, Earth, Wind, and Fire is coming in June. Tickets are $50 a piece. Go get entertainment. If you need entertainment, there's a movie theater down here at Providence. Get you some entertainment. The church is not about entertaining you. It's about pleasing and giving reverence to a God who is all powerful. All right. A fan is very loyal to their team. I'm getting ready to take another break. All right. But I want you to hear this. A fan will defend their team no matter what. No matter what the record is. They may go 0-16. But a fan will still be a fan. When things are going bad for you, you ought to still love God. God is still God. When things are going so for you, you ought to still love God. There's a lot of sports stuff out there. I saw a lot of Tennessee fans yesterday when Tennessee play or something. This softball team and something did something in there. But you know, fans are proud to wear their team's jersey. All right. Some of y'all walk around here with the Tennessee Colts like they're just, and you're not ashamed, and that's all right. That's all right. If you have a team, you're a fan, you wear that Bulls hat, even though you shouldn't be wearing it. You wear that coat, you wear they wear their team's emblem. But if you love the Lord, you ought to wear your faith. As much as you wear that sweater, you ought not be ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Paul said, I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ because it's the power of salvation. His blood can save you. Your team may win the Super Bowl, but you don't get nothing. If Jesus wins, you get salvation. If God wins, you get eternity. All you get for something, you can win the Super Bowl and you ain't gonna get nothing. A fan will find good things about their team, even if they go 6-10. A fan will always find something good to say about their team. All right. A Christian ought to always have something good to say about God. You ought not be walking around here complaining about nothing, because God has been good to you. You may be pro, you may be busted, you may be disgusted, but God has still blessed you beyond your imagination. You can be dead and lying in your grave, but you here complaining about stuff you ain't got no business complaining about. You got aches and you got pains. You ought to be thankful that God gave you feeling in your lungs, because some folk can't feel they legs. Some folk can't feel they pain. You ought to be thankful for everything that God has, and you ought to be willing to stand up and say, yes, I love the Lord, and I don't care what you think. Now there's something else about a fan. I'm going somewhere. A fan will stay out in the cold for hours and hours. When the game goes into double overtime,